Welcome back, or good morning if you're just joining us. We want to take a look at some of the stories making headlines within the local dailies. We'll begin with the Standard, but my panel this morning, sitting closer to me, he's already dived into the papers, as you can see. Mark Bichachi is a communication strategist, and in the middle I have Honorable Rose Nyamunga. She is a nominated senator on the ODM ticket. On my far left, I have Honorable Joe Mutambu. He is the former Mwingi Central Member of Parliament. It's always good to have you, and it's so good to have a lady here. Thank you so much for your time, Honorable Rose. We really appreciate it, despite the cold that you have.
Yeah.
All right, so let's take a look at the Standard newspaper this morning. A ray of hope on fuel prices as Rotich yields, but also the Chinese behind monkey slur on the Huru video has been deported. But if there's one thing that has also gotten my attention, although that is on the Daily Nation, we'll get to it, is a quick update on the death of Sharon Otieno. But first of all, to page 6, that is, where we have page 6 and page 7. The Standard newspaper this morning gives a great depth into what the economists feel. Of course, mixed reactions from the likes of Devin D, but also Rotich suggested a 12% tax to appease members of parliament. Honorable Joe, I'll begin with you. Your thoughts on this? Henry Rotich came back from Beijing, held a 2-hour closed-door meeting. He's saying that they could consider 12%. Nevertheless, that means a few of the free services, such as healthcare as well as primary, could go out the window.
Honestly, from where I sit, I would not even take 1% increase, because that will make the matter even more worse. Already, Kenyans are feeling the pinch without the 16%. What we need to understand is that the fuel is already taxed. You remember some years back, there was this road license fee, which owners of the vehicles were paying, and that money went to fuel levy. So already the fuel is highly taxed. So we do not need to tax fuel anymore, because if we do that, then we are going to hurt not only Mwanaiji, but the economy, because even the business people will not be able to run the businesses.
Right.
So this is where the buck stops, and we need to understand, what are we doing? Where are we, putting all these costs? I understand where Rotich is coming from, because of course the country must live within our means. We need to have, we need to get money to pay all the, to cut for the constitution, so to speak. This is what I would say, because the constitution as it is, and I'm sure most of my friends here will agree with me, is too expensive. We have to cater for it. It is ours, it is our tech, and we have to pay for it. And this is where the problem is. I would want to go to venture into other avenues of collecting money, but not to tax.
And that's the thing. Where would you advise President Uhuru Kenyatta to get alternative methods of funding?
There are so many ways. He's building roads. Those roads, he can erect toll stations, whereby you'll be taxing maybe 5 shillings or 10 shillings per vehicle, and you'll still get revenue. There are so many ways of collecting revenue, because the moment you impose taxes on fuel, then you are taxing even somebody who is not using the road which you want to pay for. Yes.
All right, Honorable Rose Nyamunga, your thoughts on this?
I think the 12%, in my view, doesn't make sense. We cannot continue taxing Kenyans, and we cannot run country by taxing. I remember in the last parliament, from time to time, you would see the president pleading with the members of parliament to pass some of these bills, mainly on tax. I think the way forward is proper fight against corruption. The money that is required, that is about, the shortfall is about 70 billion. That is what we are looking for from this tax.
70 billion from fuel and another 37 billion from mobile.
It's about 100 billion.
Yes.
If you compare that with the level of corruption that we have in Kenya, it cancels. And we should only intensify also the collection of revenue. I think many people are still evading tax. Kenyans should be taxed fairly, so we all feel that it is an obligation for all of us to pay tax. It should not be like a punishment. But since our income is so small and dwindling all the time, anytime you hear of any tax, you don't want to. If you go to the developed world, you see that they don't even talk about it, because it is a must, it is a given. They have to pay it. But it has not been made, in Kenya it has not been made for many people to understand the meaning of tax, why it is important, why we should understand and we should give it willingly. I think the issue of corruption is really a big problem. Most people think that if I continue paying tax, and I don't see that impacted in my life. Look at the roads, the way things are. The roads are not good.
Right.
The rains came and went. We were promised that they will start fixing the roads. We are not seeing that. Then the next time you want to tell us more tax. And in my view, we should make Kenyans understand the importance and also use the resources in a prudent manner that gives people appetite to pay tax without any form of evasion.
And Mark Bichachi, speaking of resources and being able to see the resources, a lot of people say that take a look at some of the projects that we're seeing from China. Kenyans are not getting the investment on return in that.
Well, the return on investment and government projects, I've always said, is something to be argued about for quite a while, because most roads in Kenya are not, for example, profit-making entities. You cannot charge a tax on many of the roads that we have. So we don't quite see the benefits of infrastructure in the short term. That's not how government works. It's not a business. You know, it's not like you buy bread in the morning and you sell by lunchtime and you can see a return on investment. It does not work like that. That being said, we need to really look at the situation Kenya is in its proper context. Number one, because we are always over budget in how we budget, it means we will always have to borrow and we will always have to increase tax. So there's no way we are running away from it.
But it's because of that borrowing appetite that where we are.
No, actually, no. If you look at the budget of Kenya for the last 30 years, there is not a single time we've ever budgeted based on the revenues we've received. We are always running on a deficit. That's how Kenya operates, okay? Now, because of that deficit and because we're not trying to seal the loopholes, because the loopholes exist and there are many. For example, our budgeting process is not zero-based. I'll give you an example. If a government department buys a computer today, in August, in the next budget, there'll be another computer plus 15%. And in the one after that, there'll be another computer plus 30%. And that's how Kenya works. That's how our budget increases year on year. Number two, we do not spend enough money on our development budget because our current expenditure is quite high. And it is even higher because part of our current expenditure is now county government. And other than Nairobi, none of them has significant revenues to speak of to cushion the central government. So the reality of the matter is our constitution is expensive, our budgeting process is expensive, and we are thieves.
All right,
we steal a third of our budget, which is now standing at 1 trillion shillings.
Right.
That's what we steal. So in such a place, the government is left with two choices.
What would you advise?
To continually borrow
Right.
or to increase taxes.
What do you advise Rotich? Because then again, he's also feeling the pinch from the World Banks and the IMF.
Well, you shouldn't feel the pinch from the World Bank and the IMF. Moi and Kibaki ignored them to great joy to the country. So number one, there's no country that has developed by listening to the IMF. That's the first thing I'd tell him. There's not a single country in the entire world that has ever developed because of listening to the IMF. So that's one. So ignore the IMF. Number two, do what is best for the Kenyan. Do what is best that to create an environment where the Kenyan can do what Kenyans do best, which is be entrepreneurial and find ways of making money. That's what you do. And taxing fuel 16% is not going to get you there.
All right, 16%, but Honorable Mutumba, I had Musalia Mudavadi here yesterday, Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, and he said, fine, he doesn't agree with the 16%, but he does agree with a perhaps 10 to 12%, because at the end of the day, we are a developing country. We need this money to fund, and how else would we get it?
From onset, what Kenyans need to understand is that, and that's why actually we are referring in the Constitution, the moment we say that we need this kind of these offices, that offices, we need to understand that those offices comes with cost. And what we need to put at the back of our mind, if there is any space, is that it is us, Kenyans, not the president, it is us, Kenyans, who is going to foot the bill. If you say you want 20, 40, 50 counties, you need to understand it is you who is paying. That's point number one, and I think that is where the problem is. We never understood where the money was to come from when we said we need 349 members of parliament. Where are we going to get the money to pay? We never understood what it meant to mean we need 47 counties. And I think, and my good friend is here, she was with me in parliament when I was pushing for reduction of counties, and everybody was yelling at me. Now it is dawning on them. What I told them then, it was 2013. Actually, after we saw introduction of the scrap of the VAT Act, and when we reduced the 16%, I remember then I told people, and I told my fellow members that what we are doing today will come to haunt us. And we kept on postponing. And I told them to postpone or to say we are going to defer the implementation of the tax implementation. It will not help.
And now your former colleagues are saying they did that in bad faith. They did not know what they were doing.
They
Such an
didn't know.
excuse of ignorance.
Yes, actually they did know. Nobody knew it. But I saw it. I don't know why I saw it. I want to thank God for that vision. I saw it. It's now happening. I also don't agree with what is happening in the parliament, that they are trying to push the implementation of 16% within 2 years. What I'm proposing is to scrap in totality that clause that we should not have 16%, because if we postpone in the next 2 years, we'll come back here again and start crying. We'll be queuing on petrol stations without no gas. And this is exactly what is happening. So we need to get our act right. If we don't, let me tell you, we are going to mess this country. And we are already at mess. And you look at the president and you start blaming the president. It is not the president. You look at the members of parliament, I mean the minister, and you start blaming the minister. It is not the minister.
Do Kenyans believe, or should they believe, that the members of parliament will reduce the cost of living? Are we supposed to believe that our MPs will reduce the cost of living?
You see what Kenyans need to understand. There's the process of making law involves everybody, including themselves. The moment a constitution is taken back to them to vote, you need to understand what are you voting for. And once you get it wrong, once you vote because Mutambo has told you to vote this direction and is your favorite member of parliament, and you vote without thinking, then the problem starts there. So Kenyans need to understand where the problem comes from. You cannot blame a member of parliament, and we have given him a constitution which says we need 380 members of parliament.
Honorable Nyamunga, I would like to hear your thoughts, because you see, the thing is, at the end of the day, as a member of parliament, you have been put there, you've been voted by Kenyans. Isn't it one's mandate to know and to have advisors? So when you go to parliament now, you make these decisions when you're fully aware.
Yes, that is the correct position. But let me tell you, most of this, the problems we find ourselves in as Kenyans, I think a big percentage has been brought about by politicians. Because the moment we go to the people, we want the people to listen to us. We don't explain anything. So most people are not from a point of knowledge. That's number one. And number two, there's a lot of selfishness from what I see in parliament. It is about me, and it's about today. So when it comes to the issue of continued taxation on the citizens of Kenya, that to me is not a way forward. I think what the government should be looking into, maybe to slow down on some new projects, because now we are negotiating again for the next
SGR.
Yes, SGR. And we know how expensive it is, and we know it was inflated. If we compare our costs with other countries, the difference is very big. So we maybe go slow on it, but at the same time, we are the same Kenyans who are saying we want development in Africa. We are the best. We compare ourselves with the development world, yet we do not know the pains that they went through at some stage.
Okay.